Most people don't realize this, but the biggest thing controlling their life right now isn't their circumstances, their past, or other people, it's their feelings. Every single day, emotions are quietly making decisions on their behalf. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel afraid, they retreat. If they feel unsure, they wait. And over time, this habit of letting feelings lead becomes a cage that looks like comfort, but feels like frustration. Feelings were never meant to be the driver of your life, yet that's exactly what happens when you wake up and ask yourself, how do I feel today? Instead of asking, what matters today? Here's the hard truth. Feelings are not facts. They are temporary sensations created by your brain, influenced by habit, fear, past experiences, and the desire to stay comfortable. Just because you feel unmotivated doesn't mean you are incapable. Just because you feel scared doesn't mean you are in danger. Just because you feel uncertain doesn't mean you should stop. When you let feelings dictate your actions, you give away control without even noticing it. And the cost of that decision shows up later as regret, self-doubt, and the quiet belief that you are falling behind. Think about how often you delay something important because you don't feel ready. You don't start because you don't feel confident. You don't speak up because you don't feel brave. You don't change because you don't feel strong enough. But readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. Confidence is not something you wait for, it's something you earn through action. The mistake most people make is believing that their emotions need to change before their behavior can, when in reality, behavior is what changes emotions. Your brain is wired to prioritize comfort over growth. The moment you feel discomfort, hesitation, or resistance, your brain sends a signal that says, stop, stay safe, stay familiar. That signal feels real, urgent, and convincing, but it is not a command, it is a suggestion. When you obey it automatically, you reinforce the idea that discomfort is dangerous, and the next time it shows up, it becomes even louder. This is how small acts of avoidance turn into long-term patterns of self-sabotage. Taking control of your life starts with a simple but powerful shift. You stop asking your feelings for permission. You acknowledge how you feel, but you don't let it decide what you do next. You can feel tired and still get up. You can feel nervous and still speak. You can feel unmotivated and still take one small step forward. This is not about ignoring emotions. It's about putting them in the right place. Information, not authority. The moment you act despite how you feel, something important happens internally. You prove to yourself that you are capable of moving even when it's uncomfortable. You show yourself that fear does not own you. That proof builds trust, and trust is what creates confidence. Confidence is not loud, it's quiet. It's the calm knowledge that you can handle whatever comes next, because you have handled discomfort before. Most people wait for motivation, but motivation is unreliable. It shows up when things are easy and disappears the moment they aren't. Discipline, on the other hand, is built through action. Each time you choose to move instead of stall, you weaken the habit of hesitation. Each time you follow through, you strengthen the identity of someone who shows up. That identity matters more than any feeling because it shapes your future choices. Control doesn't come from feeling good all the time. It comes from deciding that your values matter more than your mood. It comes from choosing progress over comfort, action over avoidance, responsibility over excuses. When you stop letting feelings run your life, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You become the kind of person who moves forward even on hard days. Especially on hard days, because those are the moments that define who you are becoming. And once you experience the power of acting without waiting for the feeling to change, you realize that control was never something you needed to find. It was something you needed to take right here, right now, in this moment, by choosing action over emotion, again and again and again. Most people believe confidence is something you either have or you don't, something reserved for bold personalities or people who have already succeeded. That belief is the reason so many dreams never move past the thinking stage. Confidence is treated like a prerequisite, when in reality it is a result. You don't wait until you feel confident to act, you act, and confidence is built in the process. The order matters more than most people realize, because when you reverse it, you trap yourself in hesitation. Think about how often you say, I'll start when I feel ready, I'll try when I feel more confident, I'll speak up when I know exactly what to say. That moment never arrives. Your brain is designed to avoid uncertainty, and confidence requires uncertainty at the beginning. The truth is, nobody feels confident before they do something new. They feel unsure, awkward, and exposed. The difference is not that confident people feel less fear. It's that they don't wait for fear to disappear before moving. Action is the only thing that creates evidence, and evidence is what builds belief. You don't believe in yourself because you thought about it long enough. You believe in yourself because you took action and survived the outcome. Every attempt, even the imperfect ones, sends a message to your brain that you are capable. That message gets stronger with repetition, and over time it becomes confidence. Clarity works the same way. People say they feel stuck because they don't know what to do next, But clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from doing something. Movement reveals information that thinking never will. Once you take a step, even a small one, you learn what works and what doesn't. You adjust, you refine, you grow. Waiting for clarity before acting keeps you frozen, because clarity is a byproduct of engagement, not preparation. Motivation also follows action, not the other way around. Motivation shows up after you start, not before. When you take action, your brain releases energy, focus, and a sense of progress. That forward motion creates momentum, and momentum is what carries you through resistance. If you sit still waiting to feel motivated, your brain stays in rest mode, and everything feels heavier than it actually is. The lie you've been told is that you need to feel different in order to do different. The truth is that doing different is what makes you feel different. The first step always feels the hardest because you are stepping into the unknown. That discomfort doesn't mean something is wrong. It means something is changing. Growth always feels like this at the beginning. Every confident person you admire once felt like an imposter. Every successful person once doubted themselves. The difference is they didn't let that doubt stop them from taking the next step. They acted with shaky hands, a racing heart, and an imperfect plan. And each time they did, they built a little more trust in themselves. Confidence is not loud or dramatic. It's quiet and steady. It's the willingness to try again after a mistake. It's the ability to say, I don't know yet, and keep going anyway. That kind of confidence can only be earned through experience, and experience only comes from action. If you want to change your life, stop asking yourself if you feel ready and start asking yourself what the next small action is. Not the perfect action, not the final action, just the next one. Make the call. Begin the task. Speak the truth. Each small action chips away at self-doubt and replaces it with proof. When you understand that action is the source of confidence, everything shifts. Fear loses its authority. Excuses lose their power. You stop waiting for permission and start giving it to yourself. And once you experience what it feels like to act without confidence and realize you didn't fall apart, you stop seeing fear as a stop sign and start seeing it as a signal that you're moving in the right direction. Because the fastest way to become confident, clear, and motivated has always been the same. Move first, let the feeling catch up later, again and again and again. The moment you hesitate, something powerful is happening inside your brain. And most people misunderstand it. They think hesitation means they should stop, rethink, or wait for a better moment. But hesitation is not wisdom, it's protection. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do: keep you safe, conserve energy, and avoid uncertainty. The problem is that your brain cannot tell the difference between real danger and perceived discomfort. It reacts to embarrassment, rejection, failure, or change the same way it would react to physical threat. That sudden pause before you speak up, that urge to delay starting, that voice that says maybe tomorrow. That's not intuition guiding you away from something wrong. That's fear stepping in to keep everything familiar. Fear hates uncertainty more than it hates dissatisfaction. It would rather keep you stuck in something you dislike than risk the unknown. And when you don't understand this, you start trusting hesitation as if it were truth. Hesitation feels logical. It sounds reasonable. It whispers things like, be careful, don't rush, you're not ready yet. And because it uses calm language, you believe it. But underneath that calm tone is a deep resistance to change. Fear doesn't scream, it negotiates. It gives you excuses that sound responsible, so you won't question them. That's why it's so dangerous. You don't fight it, you agree with it. Every time you hesitate and back away, you reinforce a pattern. Your brain learns that avoidance works. It learns that stopping reduces discomfort. So the next time you face a similar situation, hesitation shows up faster and stronger. What started as a small pause becomes a habit of retreat. Over time, that habit shapes your life more than any single decision ever could. The truth is, fear cannot survive action. The moment you move, fear loses its grip. It doesn't disappear completely, but it no longer controls the outcome. Action interrupts the fear loop. It shifts your nervous system from anticipation to engagement. Instead of imagining everything that could go wrong, your brain focuses on what is happening right now. And that shift is where your power lies. Most people think courage means not feeling fear. It doesn't. Courage means moving while fear is still present. Fear is not a stop sign, it's a signal. It's a sign that you are standing at the edge of growth. If something matters to you, fear will always show up. The mistake is assuming that fear means you shouldn't proceed, when in reality it means you should pay attention and step forward deliberately. Your intuition feels different from fear. Intuition is calm, clear, and steady. It doesn't rush you or pressure you. Fear, on the other hand, is urgent and loud. It wants an immediate decision to retreat. Learning to tell the difference changes everything. When you pause and notice that urgency, you can recognize it for what it is, a protective reflex, not a prediction of failure. When you act in the presence of fear, you teach your brain a new lesson. You show it that discomfort is survivable. You show it that uncertainty does not equal danger. That lesson rewires your response over time. The fear may still appear, but it becomes quieter. It stops running the show. And with each brave action, your tolerance for discomfort grows. Avoidance shrinks your world. Action expands it. Every time you choose to move instead of retreat, you reclaim a piece of yourself that fear tried to take. You become more resilient, more grounded, more capable. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger in how you meet it. The people who seem fearless are not immune to hesitation. They just don't obey it automatically. They feel the fear, recognize it, and move anyway. That is the difference. And it's a skill, not a personality trait. A skill you can practice every day in small moments. By sending the email, starting the task, saying the thing, taking the step. Once you understand that hesitation is fear trying to protect you from growth, you stop treating it like an authority. You stop asking it for permission. You acknowledge it and then you act. And in that moment of action, you take back control, because fear only has power when you stand still. The second you move, it has no choice but to follow behind you, quieter, weaker, and less convincing than before, again and again, again. Most people think real change requires a massive decision, a dramatic turning point, or a complete reinvention of their life. That belief is comforting because it gives them an excuse to wait. They tell themselves they'll start when they have more time, more energy, more confidence, or a clearer plan. But real change doesn't begin with big moments. It begins with small actions taken immediately, especially when you don't feel like it. The truth is, your life is shaped far more by what you do in the ordinary moments than by any single breakthrough. The smallest decision made in the right direction can interrupt patterns that have been running on autopilot for years. When you act quickly, before overthinking has a chance to talk you out of it, you change the trajectory of your day. And when you change enough days, you change your life. Hesitation is where most people lose momentum. The longer you wait, the louder doubt becomes. Your brain fills the silence with reasons to stop, excuses to delay, and stories about why now isn't the right time. But when you move immediately, even in a small way, you cut off that mental noise. Action short circuits overthinking. It brings you back into the present moment where things are manageable. Small actions matter because they are doable. They don't overwhelm your nervous system. They don't trigger the same level of fear as big, sweeping changes. One email, one step, one conversation, one decision to begin. These tiny moves lower resistance and make progress feel possible. And once progress feels possible, you are far more likely to continue. Momentum doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. You don't need to feel inspired. You need to feel engaged. Each small action creates a sense of movement, and movement creates energy. When you see yourself making progress, even in small ways, your belief in yourself grows. You stop seeing change as something far away and start experiencing it as something happening now. There is also power in immediacy. When you act right away, you build trust with yourself. You prove that when you decide to do something, you follow through. That trust is fragile at first, but it strengthens with repetition. And once you trust yourself, motivation becomes less important. You no longer rely on feelings to get started. You rely on your word. People underestimate how much their life is shaped by delayed decisions. Not saying no when they should. Not starting when they could. Not speaking when it mattered. These moments don't feel significant at the time, but they add up. Small, immediate actions work in the opposite direction. They compound. One brave moment leads to another. One small win makes the next step easier. Immediate action also changes how you relate to fear. Instead of letting fear stop you, you learn to move alongside it. Fear loses its ability to paralyze because you don't give it time to build momentum. You don't wait for it to disappear. You act before it can grow. And with each repetition, fear becomes a familiar sensation, not a barrier. You don't need to overhaul your life in a single day. You need to interrupt the patterns that are keeping you stuck. That interruption can be as small as choosing differently in one moment, getting up when you want to stay still, beginning when you want to delay, speaking when you want to stay quiet. These moments may look insignificant, but they are the building blocks of change. When you commit to small, immediate actions, you stop making change harder than it needs to be. You stop demanding perfection before progress. You meet yourself where you are and move forward anyway. And over time, those small actions stack into something powerful. A new routine, a new habit, a new sense of control. This is how real transformation happens. Not through dramatic leaps, but through repeated, ordinary acts of courage. You show up, you move, you act. And each time you do, you remind yourself that you are capable of directing your life, not someday, not when everything feels right, but now, in this moment, with one small decision taken immediately, again and again. Every time you act despite discomfort, something deeper than progress is happening. You are shaping how you see yourself. Most people focus on outcomes, success, results, achievements, but the real change happens at the level of identity. Control over your life is not built in one bold moment. It is built quietly through repeated acts of courage that teach you who you are. Identity is formed through evidence. Your brain is constantly asking, who am I based on what I do? When you hesitate, avoid, or back away, the brain collects that data and forms a story. I am someone who quits. I am someone who waits. I am someone who doesn't follow through. Over time, that story hardens into belief, and belief shapes behavior. But the same system works in your favor when you act. Each time you do the hard thing, even in a small way, you give your brain new evidence. You show yourself that you are capable of facing discomfort and surviving it. You prove that you can be trusted with responsibility. That proof matters more than any positive thought or affirmation because it is grounded in reality. You don't convince yourself you are strong, you demonstrate it. Courage is not dramatic. It doesn't always look brave from the outside. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when you want to hide. Sometimes it looks like sending the message you've been avoiding. Sometimes it looks like saying no, starting over, or continuing when no one is watching. These moments rarely get applause, but they are the moments that build control. When courage is repeated, it becomes part of your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes to change and start seeing yourself as someone who acts. That shift is powerful. It changes how you respond to challenges. Instead of asking, can I handle this? You ask, what's my next move? Instead of doubting yourself, you trust that you'll figure it out because you always do. Control over your life doesn't come from controlling everything around you. It comes from controlling how you respond. You can't control outcomes, timing, or other people, but you can control your willingness to act. And every time you choose action over avoidance, you strengthen that muscle. The more you use it, the more natural it becomes. At first, courage feels exhausting. You notice the fear, the resistance, the discomfort. But with repetition, something shifts. You become familiar with those sensations. They stop feeling like emergencies and start feeling like signals. Signals that you are growing, stretching, stepping into something new. That familiarity is what creates resilience. Resilience is not toughness, it's trust. Trust that you can handle hard moments. Trust that discomfort won't destroy you. Trust that even if things don't go perfectly, you will adapt. That trust is built slowly, one decision at a time. And once it's there, it changes everything. You stop needing external validation. You stop waiting for reassurance. You rely on yourself. Repeated courage also creates momentum. When you act today, tomorrow feels easier. Not because fear disappears, but because your confidence in yourself grows. You remember that you've done hard things before. You remember that you didn't fall apart. That memory becomes fuel. And momentum makes consistency possible. People who live controlled, intentional lives are not fearless or flawless. They are consistent. They have practiced choosing action so many times that it has become their default. They don't debate every decision. They move, they adjust, they keep going. And that consistency compounds into a life that feels directed instead of reactive. You don't wake up one day suddenly in control. You build it. You earn it. You practice it. Every small act of courage is a vote for the person you are becoming. Skip one moment and nothing is ruined. Show up again and the pattern continues. This is not about perfection. It's about persistence. When you look back, you won't point to one moment that changed everything. You'll see a series of small decisions where you chose courage over comfort. Those decisions shape your character. They shape your confidence. They shape your future. And once you understand that control is built through who you choose to be in uncomfortable moments, you stop chasing motivation and start practicing courage, because courage, repeated enough times, becomes identity. And identity is what ultimately gives you control over your life again and again and again.